Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by representatives from the Police Department's Explorer program.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
With pleasure, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hedges.
here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Lorraine.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Newsom.
Here.
And Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Here. We are excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to participate virtually. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, please complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to our city clerk. If participating remotely, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, please press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for each specific item. Before we move into our ceremonial portion of the meeting, which we're all so excited for, on behalf of the entire City Council, I would very much like to provide and present a very warm welcome to the City of San Mateo's newly appointed Director of Human Resources, Aracelia Esparza. Aracelia is highly regarded for her leadership across all areas of human resources, which, as our city manager says, is the spine and the network and the nerve of our entire community. Her regional expertise and talent for engaging diverse stakeholders makes her a fantastic addition to our team. She will be steering our human resources program as we work to attract and retain the top talent and promote an inclusive, diverse community here in our city. Welcome, Aracelia. So now we are moving on to the ceremonial portion of our evening. The first item is the Police Explorer Program Proclamation. And we have Chief Ed Barberini is going to come down and receive the proclamation and make a few comments on behalf of the Explorers. So on behalf of the entire City Council, let me read this proclamation. Whereas the San Mateo Police Department Explorers have dedicated themselves to developing skills and knowledge that reflect the highest standards of community service, leadership, and law enforcement, and whereas the SMPD Police Explorers represented our city with distinction at the 2024 National Explorer Competition, XCon, held in Las Vegas from June 8th to 9th, competing alongside Explorer teams from across the nation in a series of challenging scenarios that tested their training, teamwork, and skills. And whereas our Explorers showcased their expertise and brought home significant achievements, placing third in the Honor Guard detail, second in the suspicious situation scenario, and third in crime scene investigation, proudly representing San Mateo and setting a high standard for excellence. And whereas the dedication and achievements of our SMPD Explorers reflect the strength and potential of our youth, highlighting the importance of programs that foster responsibility, resilience, a spirit of service in future leaders. And whereas these outstanding young individuals here with us tonight, along with their dedicated mentors and supporters within the San Mateo Police Department, have brought honor to our city and serve as exemplary role models for their peers, inspiring pride throughout our community. And whereas the commitment and dedication demonstrated by these young individuals are invaluable assets to our community, exemplifying our values of integrity and service. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Diaz-Nash, Mayor of the City of San Mateo, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and congratulate each member of the San Mateo Police Department Post 211 Police Explorers on their extraordinary accomplishments at the 2024 National Explorer Competition. All of us express our deepest gratitude and pride for your contributions to our city and celebrate your dedication to upholding the values of service, honor, and excellence. Congratulations. And Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you and the council for your time and recognizing our special young people who serve our community on a very, very regular basis. You very rarely go to a community event where you don't see explorers. Most recently, our Booze on B event, which is one of our largest, turned into one of our largest downtown events. We have concerns with that event. We have a lot of little kids who are walking around. We have cross traffic on B Street. It's the explorers who are out there making sure that we can keep and maintain limit traffic congestion while keeping young ones safe because of the work that they do, and they're out there for hours at a time, and that's not unusual. They're there on a regular basis, so they're extremely dedicated to service. I just have a few quick words on who they are and what they do, and how important they are to the city. Their dedication to the city cannot be measured. The program is open to young people between the ages of 14 and 21. Unlike what most believe, it's not a program designed to recruit police officers or limited to those individuals who are interested in going into law enforcement. We've had explorers go through our program and excel in a variety of different fields. The program is based on developing leaders, focusing on teamwork and service, as I've mentioned. We focus on what integrity is, what character means, what service really means, and what giving back to your community really means. We talk about the mentoring that they receive. What I observe on a regular basis is the mentoring they provide to one another. It's incredible to watch these young people grow and help one another when they need it, and really develop those leadership and teamwork skills that are going to make them successful in the future. So we could not be more proud of them. As you mentioned, the last 2 years, our Explorers have gone to a national competition in Las Vegas. I've had the pleasure of going and watching. We're truly the David in a world of Goliaths when we go to this competition, and we show the country what we can do. When we went back the second year, everybody knew that San Mateo was there because of the success that they've experienced, and we have much more limited resources than many of the large departments that we're competing against, yet we are among the strongest teams there. So it says a lot about not only the Explorers in our group, but the staff that we have that dedicate a great deal of time. I'd like to thank them and mention a couple of folks specifically who do a heck of a lot of work. First of all, I'd like to thank PAL. The Explorers fall under the PAL umbrella. We made that adjustment a few years ago, and the PAL and the PAL board do an incredible job of supporting this program and make sure that we can offer these young people what they deserve based on the service that they're providing to us in the city. We're truly a better department because of our Explorer program, and I would argue that we're a better city because of what these young people have to offer. Finally, I'd like to recognize the leader of the effort, Lieutenant Kimber Joyce, who runs our Youth Services Unit, her right-hand person, Sergeant Tracy Unga, and all of the Explorer advisors. There's hours and hours that go into training and preparing these young folks, not just for competitions, but for what we ask them to do on a regular basis. They will be out at a DUI checkpoint. They will be out at community events. They'll be working many, many hours, and they need to know what they're doing, and they need to be safe, and our staff provides that. But thank you for taking the time to recognize these young folks. You know, we work in a business where we're often called when things are going wrong. We respond to conflict, we respond to negativity, and being able to work with these young people, it really rejuvenates you when you kind of see what they do. It recharges your batteries and gives you a lot of confidence and faith in where we're going. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I know they'd enjoy a picture. If you don't mind coming down, I think this is
Everyone, please come on down.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite all my council members to be in the photo with us. All right, well, after that wonderful, wonderful event, we have another ceremonial event, Lights On Safer San Mateo Streets presentation. And Sergeant Greg Cullum is going to give the presentation for us. Thank you so much, Sergeant.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. and fellow community members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Lights On program, which is a practical and transformative initiative aimed at making San Mateo a safer and more connected community. I believe this program has the potential to bring real positive change to our city by increasing road safety and easing financial burdens for residents and fostering stronger relationships between the law enforcement and the community. To start, let me share a bit more about how Lights On program works. Lights On provides free taillight, headlight, and signal repair to any driver who might otherwise receive a ticket for a broken or malfunctioning light. Typically, when an officer stops the driver for a light out, the driver will either receive a citation or a warning and be left to handle the repair at their own expense. Through this program, however, officers are instead able to offer the driver a voucher redeemable for a free light repair at a participating local auto shop. The simple act transforms what could be a negative, stressful encounter into a supportive interaction that prioritizes safety without imposing a financial burden on them. The program is designed to be easy to implement and is highly effective. The city of San Mateo partners with local repair shops willing to provide these free repairs. Officers are supplied with vouchers and trained on how to use them. With these components in place, officers have the tools to issue the vouchers instead of tickets. Drivers can then go to one of the participating shops, which are Bob Reed's Bob Reed's Service Station, Hudson Auto, and Ma's Auto Repair. They're all local ones here in San Mateo. They hand over the voucher and they get their lights fixed for free. It's a quick, efficient, and benefits both the driver and the community as a whole. Cities have implemented this programs such as where it began in Minneapolis and Baltimore have seen reductions in citations and improvements in driver safety. And the program has received positive feedback from the community members and the law enforcement alike. Now, let's talk about the impact. The Lights On program offers an alternative to punitive measures, especially for minor infractions that disproportionately affect people who may already be struggling financially. We all know that a broken headlight can sometimes go unnoticed or be postponed due to cost. But for many, the repair can be expensive and a citation just adds to the financial strain and stress. By removing this financial barrier, Lights On reduces the likelihood of accidents, especially at night, and keeps more vehicles safe and compliant on the road. Ultimately, this program encourages residents to address these minor repairs in a timely manner, creating conditions for everyone on our roads. A key benefit to Lights On is how it strengthens relationships between law enforcement and the community. It allows officers to engage with residents in a supportive way, showing that public safety is about helping people and meeting their needs, not just about enforcement and penalties. Positive interactions like these make a big difference in building trust with the community. When officers offer a helpful situation instead of a fine, it sends a message that they're not just here to enforce laws, but to assist residents in keeping our city safe. This can go a long way towards reducing tension, easing fears, and reinforcing the role of law enforcement to serve our community, support our community. Moreover, the program exemplifies community collaboration by bringing local repair shops into the initiative. We're supporting local businesses as well. Participating shops gain new customers and they contribute to the broader effort to improve safety and well-being in our city. It is a win-win for businesses, residents, and public safety officials alike. With our local shops, Bob Reed's Auto Service, Hudson Auto, and Ma's Auto Repair on board, we are ready to start the program prior to January of 2025. In addition, Lights On demonstrates San Mateo's commitment to equity and accessibility. Everyone benefits from safer roads and fewer traffic stops, and residents who may struggle financially can rest assured they'll receive support, not penalties, in situations where minor repairs are needed. This approach shows that our city values compassion and understands the challenges residents face. In closing, Lights On is about much more than car repairs. It's about creating safer streets, supporting our residents, and building trust within our community. By implementing this program, we are making a statement that San Mateo is a place where community, safety, and respect are our highest priorities. I want to thank you for your time on this. Anybody got any questions or anything?
Thank you very much. I think Councilmember Hedges has something he'd like to say.
This is an amazing program. It's very expensive to change headlights. I drive a 24-year-old and a 15-year-old automobile. And some of the automobiles, for instance, like Chevrolet sedans, the most common thing to go out is the brake lights and the dash light because they're all on the same circuit. Worked on cars a lot of my life. So it has gotten, because some of these headlights are a whole unit, and they're very expensive. So this is an amazing program, especially for poor people or people that are struggling in this city. And to give them a way to fix it and not a ticket is an amazing thing to do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. I think the question I have is that you said the program is going to launch in January?
Yes.
And will there be a page on the city's website that talks about the program?
Yes, there'll be a page on that with a link to the Lights On program and their webpage as well.
Okay, so all the community would just have to search for lights on or just broken tail light.
Yeah, and then also if a member gets stopped and gets a citation, a voucher, they will then have the instructions on how to handle it.
Okay, great, because certainly the more we can spread the word about this great program, the better.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Lee.
Well, I liked Councilmember Hedges' tagline, "Fix it, no ticket." Kind of rhymes. I was wondering about the longevity of the program. Is this a pilot that's grant funded? And do we have? Are we in a testing mode, or is this going to be a permanent program?
It's permanent, and it's funded. It's funded through I believe it's our general funds from the police department is how we're helping fund it.
That's great news. And then how many vouchers are eligible?
So it goes based off of how many citations we wrote the year prior. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it was about 170. So we're going to have roughly around 200 vouchers to start the year. And then each year they reevaluate how many we give, and then it adjusts from there.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled to hear that that we're initiating something that's actually going to be a permanent city service through the PD, and I love the community building aspect and support for small businesses as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
So we've had a rather good start to City Council night, haven't we? It's been pretty special. Okay, now let's move on to another very important part, our consent calendar. City Clerk, could you please read the consent calendar for us?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 3, Marina Library Structural Improvements Project, Grant Agreement. Item number 4, Public Works Facilities Construction Manager, Amendment. Item number 5, Wastewater Treatment Plant Outfall Cleaning and Repair Services Agreement. And finally, item number 6, Community Member Participation in Sojourn to Pass Training Payment Authorization.
Thank you very much. Is there any member of the council who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar? No? Okay. If any members of the public who wish to comment on any consent calendar item, now would be the time to make your comment. This is for consent calendar items only. City Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to make comment?
Madam Mayor, we have not received any requests to speak on the consent calendar.
Okay. Then I will.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
There we go. Could you please take the roll?
Councilmember Hedges,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Newsom,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Lorraine,
Yes.
and Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may address the City Council at this time. State law prevents council from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. This public comment section is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that's subject to council's discretion and can be extended if council wishes to do so. If needed, an opportunity for additional public comment may also be provided later in the agenda. City Clerk, could you please tally the total number of requests to speak on general public comment?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. In chambers, we have a total of 16 requests to speak. Right now, I'm seeing 3 hands raised in our Zoom environment, so that would be a total of 19 speakers, and per council rules and procedures, that would be 2 minutes per speaker.
Correct.
So we will be naming the last speaker. Rich Kay will be our last speaker from the virtual environment, and we will start with in-house request to speak. In the interest of efficiency, when I call your name, if you could kindly line up to my right, that would be greatly appreciated. So our first 3 speakers will be Martin Elliott, followed by Linda San Felipe and David Deasy.
Get the little stopwatch?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name's Martin Elliott. I have a home in San Mateo, and I was pleasantly surprised the other day when I noticed that the cell site on Hacienda Street was suspended. So I want to thank you all for your good work there, and I want to let you know that it's going to make me very excited about paying my property tax bill. I'm actually looking forward to it, so thank you.
Well, that
But
makes us
kidding
very
aside,
excited.
I know it's a serious matter, and I know a lot of work went into it, and I'm very grateful for that. I do think it gives us another challenge, though, together, and that is companies like Crown Castle are going to look at this new ordinance and try to get around it. They're going to try to flood you with applications, and I would urge you to adopt the ordinance that you've worked so tirelessly on. I think it's a good ordinance. It's got precedent in other cities. I think you're in a very good spot to continue on with it, and I would urge you to do it as quickly as you can. I will also tell you that once upon a time in a prior life, I worked for one of the world's largest payment systems. I ran compliance programs for financial institutions. I learned a lot doing that. And when I had entities that were operating in an unsafe, unsound manner, or were doing things they shouldn't do, or doing things they promised me they wouldn't do, or operating outside the rules, I would suspend their programs. I would impose risk conditions on them. I would ask third parties to go in and figure out what they're doing wrong so they can do it right. That's a little lesson from outside in an old world, but I think it's applicable to what you good folks are going to be facing. I would look at Crown Castle and I would say that they are not in good standing. They have not behaved as a good corporate citizen. And as someone who's worked with companies and the biggest banks around the world, they don't always have the best intent. Even names you'd be surprised will do things that you would be surprised about. So have courage. Continue on, be strong, and take Crown Castle to task.
Thank you.
Our friends.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Linda San Felipe, followed by David Deasy and Tom Leese.
Hi, my name is Linda San Felipe. My husband and I have been proud residents of San Mateo for over 25 years, where we've raised our 3 daughters and just welcomed their first grandchild. We love this city. But we are deeply upset by the recent permit approval for a small cell installation of 535 Clark Drive, just around the corner from our home in San Mateo Park, approved mere weeks before our new, more protective wireless ordinance is set to take effect. While we are truly grateful for the city's efforts in adopting a stronger ordinance to safeguard our community, it feels as though Crown Castle is rushing permits through to bypass the protections our new ordinance will soon provide. I urge our city officials to exercise their authority under the current code to incorporate a 300-foot setback and prioritize aesthetic preferences from least to most desirable as specified in the existing ordinance's standard conditions of approval. According to Trip May, this action is lawful and it is essential that we act immediately rather than wait until December. We ask city leaders to take prompt action to protect us from these last-minute, reckless permit applications such as the ones just approved at 535 Clark Drive and 620 Costa Rica, both of which have been appealed. Since 2018, I have been advocating for responsible wireless development in our city, co-founding San Mateans for a Safe Environment that helped to get the city's first wireless ordinance enacted. Over the past year, I worked behind the scenes with the No Sellouts group to raise awareness about the unchecked spread of small cell installations and have supported legal efforts led by attorney Ariel Strauss. I cannot stand by while rushed approvals threaten to undermine our progress just as we approach a crucial change in policy. We need your support now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be David Deasy, followed by Tom Lees and Dr. Vikash.
Hello, Madam Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is David Deasy. I actually live at 535 Clark Drive. That's been referenced. So I'm the homeowner there. We've lived there for 22 years. My statements tonight, I want to express my strong dissatisfaction with how the small cell wireless project is being managed in San Mateo, and in particular how Crown Castle is dictating how the city should be managing its infrastructure. The perfect example is this permit that was approved just last week. Clearly violates all of the aesthetic and obtrusive design standards that were laid out, numerous application errors, and never should have been approved. And so with that, at the same time, I do want to echo some of the other comments that have been stated, thanking the city for the efforts that have been put in place to put this new ordinance potentially in place. It's pending and it's going to be coming. I think it'll be a necessary improvement. At the same time, I'd like to urge you guys to use all the collective powers that you have to try to accelerate getting this new ordinance in place and make sure that we can put an end to a lot of these illegitimate permits that are being approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Tom Lees, followed by Dr. Vikash and Maria Mavridis.
Hi, thank you. I voted yesterday and I got this sticker. Nice sticker. And it says on the bottom of the sticker, it says, be yourself, treat others how you want to be treated, reuse, reduce, recycle, have manners, should be have good manners, be kind, help others, be inclusive, stay positive, show empathy, be one with nature. Animals are equal to humans. Looks don't matter. That's a big one. Don't judge a book by its cover. Everyone is equal. Thank you. That was a great sticker, and I honor the Parks and Rec Department for having these stickers every year. It's amazing. I just want to echo what was said for the Crown Castle Corporation, a $50 billion company with $40 billion in debt, coming into cities, pushing us around. We're understaffed and overwhelmed, but I know you guys are fighting to keep our neighborhood safe, and I just hope we can stop them from submitting a ton of applications before January and really stand up for our beautiful city. So thank you guys for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Dr. Vikash, followed by Maria Mavridis and Irina Mavridis. We'll have a video presentation. Just bear with me one moment while I bring that up. Thank you.
The No Sellouts group would like to present this video.
When we went out in these 11 markets, we tested for well over a year so we could see every part of foliage, every storm that went through. We have now busted the myth that it has to be line of sight. It does not. We've busted the myth that foliage will shut it down. I mean, there was back in the days when a pine needle would stop it. That does not happen. And these things, in the 200 feet from a home, we're now designing the network for over 2,000 feet from transmitter to receiver, which...
It's really high frequency, so everybody thinks it doesn't go very far, but it's a really big pipe, and so that's what allows you to gain the super fast speeds. We're here on top of this parking garage. We're 3,000 feet away from our radio node. The cool thing about this is we did not move the radio node. It's pointing down to serve the customers in that area. But here, even 3,000 feet away, we're still getting gig speeds. So we've driven about a third of a mile away from the radio node. It's located over there behind the trees. We're still getting very good speeds, even though we have foliage in between.
Oh, wait, keep going. What we're asking for is only 1/10 of the distance that he just measured, 300 feet versus 3,000 feet. And I want to thank the Mavridis family and my sisters here at Kelly Ryerson for doing all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Maria Mavridis, followed by Irina Mavridis and Bernard Brandt.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I just want to express my appreciation to the city staff for what looks like a very promising draft policy proposal. And basically, we're begging and pleading to the city on public record to do whatever is in their power to make this policy implemented sooner and avoid a stampede of more applications by Crown Castle, just to not undo everything and all the work that we've done and the work that the Attorney Tripp May has also consulted the city on. We're all within our rights to not wait and just implement this new ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Irina Mavridis, followed by Bernard Brand and Mava. Apologize, I'm butchering your name.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members, deputy mayor, city staff. Many of us are here tonight overjoyed about the numerous canceled wireless permits throughout San Mateo, as well as the upcoming policy proposal. But we're also here asking for your help again. As you've already seen, Crown Castle has a history of applying for dozens or more sites that they actually don't need and are not prepared to act on. This approach is very burdensome for staff and worrisome for residents. I sent a copy to council today of the letters that your city attorney's office sent to Crown Castle to remind you of their multiple infractions. Following your direction from the prior study session, a new policy proposed by staff with expert outside counsel advice was passed unanimously by the S&I commissioners. We are thrilled with this new proposal. There's some recommended emendations, of course. Virtually all the changes to the design and placement standards for small cells is in the policy. As a result, we are asking the city to take immediate action to smooth the transition to these new standards by enacting this policy by resolution at the November 18th first reading of the ordinance, rather than waiting for 30 days after the second reading in January. The city could also enact a brief moratorium, perhaps, on accepting new applications, which is, we understand, allowed under Portland versus FCC, provided that the moratorium does not continue for an unreasonably long or indefinite amount of time. In our situation, it would only last until January. Alternatively, we would ask the director to enact the policy in the meantime, or perhaps City Council could request this of the director as well. We would like you to consider any lawful and reasonable option to protect the public from the industry's usual tactics. We cannot rest until the policy is enacted, and a mandatory, non-industry aligned technical expert is involved anytime the industry seeks exception to go into our newly, hopefully restricted sites. We are so appreciative of all of the time and effort each one of you took to listen to our concerns and the needs of your residents. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Bernard Brand, followed by Maeva Kamatsu and John Connolly.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, City Council. I'm Bernard Brand. I've been living in San Mateo for 26 years, and I had the luxury of having one of these cells supposed to be installed 6 feet from my window, but apparently it has been canceled right now because it didn't install on time. So thanks for that. Thanks for the new initiative. I think a lot of support has been very highly appreciated, a lot of work in the commission and different people. So we want to say thank you. And as everybody said, we know Crown Castle will do what they can to go around, push you through. And waiting for January is a bit worrying for us because they will try to put things back, knowing they don't care how many they need. They try to put a lot more than what they need, and they play on the quantity to swamp you in the process. So we are ready to help if needed, and if we can communicate, we could check on all these things as well, helping all the community to be sure we don't have too many cells installed when it's not necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mara, or maybe? Thank you. And followed by John Connolly and Janine Futas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to be here and was very excited. I attended your presentation. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Yes? I attended your presentation where you showed the new ordinance. It's fantastic. Obviously, a lot of significant time and effort has been put into this very nice piece of new work. I noticed there have been some sudden recent approvals in the San Mateo Park, which I thought was a little confusing, and it made me feel concerned that perhaps Crown Castle may attempt to suddenly deluge us with new approvals that would be, new applications that might be submitted before our new ordinance is made effective, and thus they might attempt to get something done with the old ordinance yet again. And of course, this would be really negative after we've done so much work. It would also be weird because let's say we did an approval like that, those people who got those approvals on their place would be able to petition and appeal them under the old ordinance rules, which would not cost $595 and would require all of you to be here. And we kind of be restarting this whole wheel turning again that we've already been through and rather not do. So I wanted to just say that I was a little confused and concerned about that point. I'm hoping that we can be proactive, get a nice new work made effective, and so that everything they put forward comes through that. I was also noticing we do have this exception for, I know we have the great 300-foot setback, but there's the possibility that they could apply for exceptions. I'm a little concerned they may just apply the whole thing, everything they already applied for the first time, reapply it again, and just ask for an exception on every single one. And I hope we have thought about how we can't really let them do that, take advantage of that piece of language that's in the ordinance we now have. Those are the things that are on my mind. Again, I'm grateful and thankful for you guys to have done such a super job with all, for all of our benefit in the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Janine, followed by Robert Kiss and Kelly Ryerson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Honorable Consul. I would like to echo everything that's been said here this evening by all the speakers before me. I am very grateful to all the work that has been done by everyone in government this year and a half since we've come at the beginning of the request to look at the cell site that were proliferating in all of our neighborhoods, including in mine. So at this moment, with the gratitude of all this work from our grassroots movement and all of you, I would really like to also underline that if there is anything that can be done before the finish line so that we are protected as constituents in the best possible way, to please do so, so that industry is responsible and we can live safely in our neighborhoods. And also that we can be a bellwether city, perhaps, San Mateo. I have been part of San Mateo since the 1950s. Not consistently, but back always. And it's a good thing to see all the other things that we've heard this evening with the broken lights. So there's a lot of hope. So I'm rooting for that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Robert Kiss, followed by Kelly Ryerson and Andrew Ryan.
Thank you, Council and City staff, for this opportunity. I'm a San Mateo resident for more than 30 years, and I've been in public service for more than 20 years through my homeowners association and SMUHA that some of you are probably familiar with. I appealed small cell device number 61 to the Commission June of last year, I think that was. This device is across the street from my house. It's about 100 feet from the wall of my home, obviously closer to my property and directly visible at my home. I'm the closest home to this device, and then the 50 or so homes in my area are further out. In my appeal, I mentioned that I felt that the alternatives analysis that Crown Castle had done was incomplete. That was the basis of my appeal. I offered alternatives that would meet performance objectives, as were just validated by the video we watched of the CEO. The commission chose not to challenge Crown Castle at that point in time, but as you know, a lot of work has happened since then. I just want to remind you that Crown Castle's behavior has been unacceptable. That device was illegally energized and shut down by DPW. Crown Castle damaged streets, caused 4 Cal Water leaks on De Anza Boulevard, for which they took no responsibility for resolving those. They've shown over and over again they cannot be trusted. The draft ordinance is great. We need to get it in place, and I urge you to act as quickly as possible. Use all the authority that you have in your power to move this forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Kelly Ryerson, followed by Andrew Ryan and Frank Elliott.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, so we're literally holding our breath because we could not believe what we were seeing as in live time. It was changing into orange where these sites were. We're so thrilled. We feel like we're so close. As everyone's been expressing tonight, clearly we're nervous that in the next month or two, Verizon's going to come in and try and dump a lot of applications. Now, Verizon was present at the S&I committee meeting to express their thoughts, so we know they're still on it, so that is what gives us a lot of nervous feeling about it. As Irina had mentioned, we would love to have a moratorium put in place in the meantime through the end of the year, if at all possible, or to have a resolution that's passed in the upcoming 18th meeting. Either one of those things would put a limit in terms of what Verizon can do and really set us at ease. Also, just in case you were worried that now people won't be able to get internet access because these towers won't be put right next to homes, AT&T certainly provides high-speed internet through fiber, and it is only $50 a month, high speed, so we don't need to feel worried about our citizens' access. Thank you so much again. We can't wait to just finally put this behind us.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Andrew Ryan, followed by Frank Elliott, and our final speaker in chambers will be Michael Reagan.
Honorable council members, my name is Andrew Ryan. I'm here representing the neighborhood group Less Red Tape that is opposing the historic district in Baywood. For the last year, Less Red Tape has been going door to door in Baywood, educating homeowners and gathering formal objection letters opposing the historic district. I'm proud to say that more than 50% of the 444 homeowners in Baywood have now sent signed objection letters to Sacramento stating that they don't consent to their homes being part of a historic district. Over and over again, homeowners have told us that they don't want the extra red tape, they don't want their home insurance rates going up, and they don't like the undemocratic process being used by the Heritage Alliance. A majority is a huge milestone because under federal rules, this means that Baywood cannot be listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The Baywood National Register District is dead. The San Mateo Heritage Alliance has lost. We are publicly asking the Heritage Alliance to stop the nomination process and leave Baywood alone. Continuing this pointless process only makes the Heritage Alliance look even more out of touch. As the council considers enacting a citywide historic ordinance next year, it is incredibly important that these ordinances be 100% based around owner consent. No consent, no historic. Honorable Mayor Nash, I know you and your husband personally wrote a letter of support to Sacramento in favor of the historic district. But in your role as council member, your obligation is to represent the will of your voters. And the will of your voters is that they do not consent to being in a historic district. We ask you to put your own personal beliefs aside and support our demand for consent. No consent, no historic. We know the city has an RFP out to develop historic ordinances. Please ensure that consent of owners is primary in any ordinance that is developed. No consent, no historic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Frank Elliott, followed by Michael Reagan.
Good evening, honorable council members. And I'm not going to talk about cellular. In fact, Andrew covered most of what I'm going to say, so I can keep it fairly brief. Thank you very much for deciding to investigate the impact of historic districts on getting insurance for homeowners. Some insurance companies don't care. Mine happens to care. Safeco, part of the third largest insurance company in the nation. They told me if Baywood became historic, they would not renew my insurance. There's been subsequent correspondence I've seen which has sort of discounted my concerns, and maybe I'm the only one, but it's real for me. This historic district thing is scary. I don't want to have to change my insurance company. By the way, I have a sign of support in my neighborhood for Measure T. Do I want more high rises? No. I voted yes anyway because I think the city fully vetted this and the gains outweigh the costs. Who is against Measure T? Good question. Perhaps the people that don't want to see San Mateo change at all, that want historic districts. Not so, well, and that Measure T, by the way, there's a democratic vote process. We get to vote. Not so for deciding the historic eligibility for Baywood. It's decided by a few unelected people, submitted to an agency that approves 100% of the nominations that are submitted to them. My potential insurance problem? Too bad. What I'd ask you to do, please, council, we've got more information. Andrew just pointed out that there's overwhelming opposition to this. Please agendize a measure to ask San Mateo Heritage Alliance to permanently and publicly withdraw their nomination with OHP. I know you can't make them do it, but you have great influence, and I think you could make a clear statement that we want consent, just as Mr. Ryan said. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker in chambers will be Michael Reagan.
Good evening. Before I forget, I just hope we have a nice, safe election tomorrow. Everybody comes out with the results they want, but that can't happen. So I am currently the president of the Beresford-Hillsdale Neighborhood Association, and this wonderful group has brought this issue to you, given you so much information that you can use, and you've evidently decided to implement a lot of these. So I do hope you guys take them seriously. I know in my neighborhood, a lot of people have come to us and are quite concerned about these cell towers. Fact is, I have a woman just around the block that has one pointed directly into her bedroom. It's not activated yet, and I hope these things aren't, and I hope that 300-foot distance is implemented. I think that will save a lot of trouble that we're looking at. Getting back to Crown Castle, if this was the contractor that was working on your home or my home, we'd fire them. We'd get rid of them. We would find somebody else. Shoddy work, turning on cell towers they're not allowed to. It's kind of an embarrassment. Your own city manager's written them letters. And I think you played way too nice with them. This is hardball. This is a lot of money. This is people's health. And I think you need to take it seriously. And we're counting on you to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to our virtual environment, our next speaker will be Mannheimer. Mannheimer, please unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Susan Mannheimer from Harbor Town, and I just wanted to speak to item 7 very quickly. Is this the time to do so?
Not at this time. This is general public comment. If you'd like to raise your hand when we reach item number 7, we can take your comment at that time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Daria. Daria, please unmute your mic.
City Council, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm following up on the topic of train horn noise since we're already in November and Caltrain has not delivered on their promise to lower the train horn decibel levels to 96 decibels. I've reached out to the San Mateo community through the San Mateo Reddit and Nextdoor, and within 5 days got 39 responses of people that would like to organize around the effort of establishing a quiet zone, and 28 personal statements about how much these individuals are being affected by the increased noise levels and frequency of the new electrified trains. I don't think the voices of San Mateans are being properly represented at city council meetings simply due to the lack of awareness and limited availability of people to show up. So today as I speak, I'm speaking on behalf of an organized group of individuals who ask for action from the city to help improve the quality of our daily lives for us and our families. I only expect to see an increased response on my forum with interest in making San Mateo a quieter place. The issue of Caltrain horn noise is multidimensional and consists of both short-term and long-term solution. While the biggest relief will come from the establishment of a quiet zone, we simply cannot continue as is, even in the months to come. Caltrain has increased the train horn levels and the frequency of trains to every 5 minutes during commute hours, starting at 5 a.m. and ending at 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. I have a lot more to say, but since we only have 2 minutes, I really just wanted to share a quote from some of the San Mateo residents that were submitted. Some people said it's very difficult to focus at work and difficult to sleep at night. It gives them crippling anxiety and wakes up their kids. So I'd really like to understand how we can stay informed on all the actions the city is taking. And I really want to discuss this topic in more detail to understand the nuances of the situation and what is being done and what else can be done and how we can help. I'd love to have a question from you on that.
Thank you. Our next and final speaker will be Rich K. Rich, please unmute your mic.
First, you got to find the button. Martin, this is Rich Kranz. I may be in the same situation. I jumped the gun a little early. I'm new business item number 7. So with your permission, I will talk later.
No problem. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor, that concludes general public comment.
All right, thank you very much. I will close the public comment period. Thank you, everyone who took the time to come tonight, in person or virtually. We really appreciate your participation, and I know staff will be following up on everything that was said. Okay, so now we are going to move on to new business, and that is item number 7 that many people are clearly interested in, gardening waste ordinance introduction. And our city attorney, Prasanna Rasia, is going to talk to us about it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good evening again, Council. I'm going to do my presentation from here as opposed to my usual spot in the center. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but I will be brief. So as you know, one of the council's priorities was to look at an ordinance prohibiting garden waste from being deposited in the public right-of-way. So that is what's being presented to you this evening. And the basic intent would be to require gardeners and residents to collect leaves and grass and other material gleaned from maintaining one's lawn or garden and not allow it to be put in the right-of-way. We have an existing ordinance that addresses gardening waste and dumping in some respects that we'll get to in a moment. But the idea is that this waste would not be put in the right-of-way, and for aesthetic reasons, also to avoid clogging of city infrastructure, storm drains, sewer lines, this code would establish some additional guardrails around the depositing of that waste on public streets. So as I mentioned, our existing code, there are a few relevant provisions. One relates to leaf blowers. Leaf blowers, those operating leaf blowers already cannot blow that material onto the street without immediately removing it, or onto neighboring properties for that matter. Also, there is an anti-littering ordinance under which one cannot simply dump garbage, refuse, trash into the street. That is really directed at garbage, solid waste, doesn't specifically deal with gardening clippings, but it is on the books right now. And then lastly, in implementing SB 1383, the council enacted a number of code provisions requiring such things as placing gardening waste and other green waste, organic waste into the green bins that are then set up for pickup. Applies to residences, applies to commercial businesses. So what this ordinance would do would prohibit something a little different. It would define garden waste, and I won't read the whole definition. It's in the staff report and also in the ordinance. But it includes things like grass, clippings, other organic waste, dirt, tree branches, limbs, and other material that's the result of gardening care. And that would be prohibited from being put in the right-of-way under this ordinance. And it would really be complaint-driven, just much like the leaf blower ordinance. Code enforcement staff is aware of the ordinance, and typically the way the ordinances like these are enforced is through administrative citations. Well, first a warning would be issued, and then beyond that, there is a procedure under which administrative citations could be issued. Every day is a violation. It's a separate violation. It starts out at $100 for each violation. Then if that's unabated, then it goes up to $200 and then $500. And again, each and every day is a separate violation. There's other enforcement mechanisms, but we also have to think about use of city resources and the appropriate use of city resources in addressing matters such as this. So that would be the most typical method to enforce a code provision like this. And then lastly, I'll just say that other cities in the county do have not exactly the same type of ordinance, but there are either anti-littering ordinances or code provisions that prohibit material from being deposited into sewer infrastructure like sand, grit, other materials, so as to avoid clogging and damaging that infrastructure. So those would be slightly different, but it would still be within the same kind of universe of anti-littering ordinances and ordinances to protect public infrastructure. So that's the end of my presentation. The staff recommendation is to introduce the ordinance this evening, but happy to take any questions after public comment.
Thank you very much, City Attorney. City Clerk, is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have one request to speak in chambers and a number of hands being raised in our Zoom environment. So that's a total of 5 requests to speak, which per council rules and procedures, that would be 3 minutes per speaker. So we'll invite our first speaker up, which is Maria Godfrey.
Yeah. What are you going to do with it all? Yeah.
I'm so happy. Thank you for letting me address you tonight. So I'm proudly representing, I'm Maria Godfrey, and I'm proudly representing Flood Free Coalition. And I am actually strongly trusting that you will approve the ordinance prohibiting the disposal of garden waste into our streets and drains. This practice clogs these vital systems and pollutes our already compromised lagoon with unnecessary debris. This is very crucial because allowing garden waste to enter our streets and drains actually directly undermines the stormwater infrastructure ballot measure that residents passed last December, which the City Council pretty much supported unanimously. Any action that fails to protect and improve the maintenance of our already delicate infrastructure contradicts the very purpose of that measure. Additionally, it negates the demanding work of Public Works, which is dedicated to winterizing San Mateo by clearing out compromised drains. Adopting this ordinance to protect and improve the health and well-being of our community's stormwater infrastructure just makes sense, and it's responsible to San Mateans. Also, please relay to the public its approval with clear directives as to how it will be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving to our virtual environment. Rich Kay, please unmute your mic.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Rich Kranz, and also a member of Flood Free. I'm speaking to you tonight as a citizen. You know, back in the 70s, we were taught the solution to pollution is dilution. And that worked when there were only 50 or 60,000 people in San Mateo. We now have over 101,000 and an aging infrastructure. So times have changed. And now because so many are contributing to the infill of the streams, drains, creeks, it's perfect timing for the city council to address this. So in short, clean up after yourself. Don't shift the burden of unclogging the drains to the city. Don't put it there in the first place. We need to create don't create a safety flood hazard that we fought so hard and are spending so much money to fix. Retroactively, I would ask the city think about looking at the creeks with Flood Free, with Danielle. We both walked a number of the creeks just to see what was on both sides, what's being washed into the creek, and now clogging up the catch basins and trash racks. That's very labor intensive. And yeah, there's people throwing clippings, branches, debris, leaves over the fences. And then when it rains, it gets washed into the lagoon. So that's something to think about. If anybody on the council is thinking this is particularly burdensome and it's going to be harmful financially to people, these battery powered now, no gasoline, battery powered leaf blowers, they also make them, they're suction devices with a bag, and it makes it very easy to clean up after yourself, throw it in the green bin, and we can all coexist in San Mateo, just making San Mateo a little bit more beautiful to live in. I yield the rest of my time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mannheimer. Mannheimer, please unmute your mic.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much. I thank the city for raising this ordinance. I think it's really critical in light of all we're doing, and to just recognize again Danielle, Korko-Gadinsky, and all of those, Rich and others who have put so much time and energy into ensuring that our lagoon and our rainwater and drain water system is really making sure that we don't go through the flooding that we've seen in the past. This is really not only a complementary ordinance to pair with all of that, including the amount of money I know that the council has not only set aside, but is going to be conducting the spot dredging, et cetera. It really doesn't make any sense to continue to build up the silt, waste, and sediment in the lagoon for all of these other things that we're trying to do to manage our stormwater. And so I really encourage and ask that the council recognize this is a very important piece of managing that drain water and stormwater system that we have, known as our lagoon and our sump pumps, et cetera. And so please consider that for all of those who are now, and I've seen a ton of it, especially here where we have all the leaf blowing when, you know, all of our leaves are starting to shed from the trees, all going into the streets and right into the stormwater system. So it is really wonderful that the city is investing like they are to ensure that we are flood free for our future. But the last piece of this is that we have to make sure we don't continue to contribute to the silt and sediment there. Thank you so much. I yield my time as well.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Rick Sakuda.
Good evening. Rick Sakuda with the Flood Free and the Marina Lagoon Action Committee. For the past 29 years, I've conducted the Marina Lagoon cleanup, and I can see what flows into the Marina Lagoon, and there's quite a bit that comes down the tributaries. I feel it is absolutely critical that the council adopt a garden waste ordinance. We all know all too well what happened on New Year's in 2023 because basic protocols were not followed and because the maintenance of the storm drain system was a can that was kicked down the road. The city and many residents and businesses suffered great harm and worse. At this point in time, we do not need to be turning our backs on keeping our storm drain system from working at peak efficiency. I would also like to point out that the Marina Lagoon flows into the San Francisco Bay, and the waterways and tributaries that feed it are protected under the Federal Clean Water Act of 1972 and must be kept free from pollutants by federal law. Now that this matter of organic waste pollutants has been put in the spotlight, we as a city cannot turn our backs on it. Let us not go backwards, and please proceed with Mr. Hedges' proposed ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Regina. Regina, please unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So hi, this is Regina. I'm a member of the Parks and Recs Commission. So hello to all my fellow council members. And thank you for your time, honorable council members here. I basically will be very short. I want to echo what everyone has kind of said ahead of me when it comes to passing the ordinance that you and the council have put forth. We all know the hard work that goes into maintaining our streets and maintaining our waterways and our lagoons. And so whatever we can do to enforce that and keep that to the level that we need it to for the future, I'm here to fully support that. And so again, I just want to echo everything everyone has already said. And thank you to you and everyone on the council for bringing this important issue forward. And I do yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Bring it back and close public comment on this item and open up questions, comments from council members. Councilmember Hedges.
I'm the one that raised this issue at Blue Sky, and I want to thank Prasanna. I think he's done a really great job on the ordinance. I recently, for the last 54 years, my wife has had her hometown newspaper mailed to the house, and recently an article on the front page talked about the green waste ordinance, and the city council passed it a 4-2 vote. And the reason stated in the article, number one, was safety, because they claimed, and I think it's true, that the waste in the street when it rains creates a slick surface that can cause traffic accidents. The other reason was the same as we're talking about tonight, the clogging of the sewers. And with us, even a further complication and just that much more sediment into Marina Lagoon, which is very expensive to dredge. So it's a cost-saving method. I think most people, because of the state's efforts on the green waste, will comply. There will be a few scofflaws, but I think they'll be brought under control too. And with the smoking ordinance, at least where I live, we had tons of fights between neighbors over smoking, and as soon as the city passed the ordinance, the board has not had to deal with that anymore. Everybody's complying. They're walking 40 feet from their houses to smoke, and most of us that don't smoke really appreciate that. And I think we'll have the same situation here. I'm happy with the way it's written. I have no more to say on the matter. It's up to everybody else on the council.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else on council have questions or comments?
If I interject at this time. So first, thank you, Councilmember Hedges, for your comments. I also want to respond to one of the public comments, if I may. So there's a discussion about creeks. We do have a watercourse protection ordinance that addresses throwing waste and other debris into the creek. So we did look at that issue, but we have rules on the books right now to help guard against that.
If I could just respond to that. So, Prasanna, as someone who pulls trash out of the lagoon twice a year, there's a lot of dumping of stuff in the creeks.
Sure, I understand. Like, enforcement is a different question entirely, but there's still a code provision in the municipal code right now that attempts to address the issue.
Great. Any comments or questions? I have a comment. No? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'm supporting this, but I would like to make sure that if this goes forward, that we do spend some city resources, for example, when we do our next city newsletter, promoting this to the residents of the city so that they're aware of what the law is and what's gone into play, and also giving us just better visibility. Thanks.
Happy to do that and educate and inform, because that's going to be the biggest step of this in order to communicate out to our community that this is on the books and we take it seriously as a community and as a city. And happy to include it in our next print newsletter that goes to every single address, businesses and residences in this city.
Excellent. Yes, Councilmember Lee.
I'll just add to the idea part here. I think it would be really great to target local businesses and institutions to adopt Adjourn as well. I think that, really that's the implementation for me is more effective way to direct resources and sort of connecting where those opportunities are for institutional partners who have more longevity and skin in the game in the community can own those pieces of their blocks. And I think that it might be interesting to look at sort of benchmarking the adopted drain program in terms of how many drains we have actually being adopted and what the engagement is for that program. As one of the most important volunteer efforts that we have to support flood-free San Mateo. So, I have expressed concerns about this policy, about the issues of enforcement, and potentially the issues of targeting our low-wage Latino workforce who are delivering these services. I wholeheartedly support the intent of this policy. I have issues with potential resource diversion away from programs that I think will make very measurable impacts, like Adopt a Drain. So if we can do all of those things, great. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, but I have one more question.
Please.
Question for Prasanna. So would the responsible party be the actual gardening service or the homeowner? And sorry, I don't know if it was specified.
Right. So, I mean, the idea is it's those who are residing at the property, but also those who are providing, gardening services too. I mean, it doesn't say, it's intentionally not specific. It just says no one shall deposit waste in the right of way. So it's intended to provide, to target those individuals, businesses providing gardening services, as well as those who reside at the property. I mean, the idea being just to make sure the waste doesn't get in the right of way. So it's a generic prohibition.
Great. No comments? Okay.
I support this. Thank you.
Excellent. So I think, is there someone who would like to make a motion?
I think Rich should.
I move approval of the ordinance on gardening waste.
Second.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, so the staff recommendation, which you're approving
Yes.
of, is
Yes.
to introduce the ordinance.
Yes.
It'll come back on the consent calendar at the next meeting for adoption.
Thank you, Prasanna.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hedges.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Newsom.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Lorraine.
Yes.
Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who made public comment on this important issue. So we are going to move on now to the City Council Priority List Progress Report. Christina Horsberger, our Assistant City Manager, is going to give us the update of a very long list and lots of things going on. Stretch. Our system is not being cooperative tonight.
ready.
Okay.
Good evening, council members. So for your review tonight is our city council priority list progress report for 2024. So the requested action is for the council to review the completed and anticipated progress on the City Council 2024 to 25 fiscal year priority list and to provide direction for staff on any desired adjustments to the list. And so, as you know, the City Council goal-setting process generally includes 4 steps. Step 1 is the goal-setting process, which takes place in the beginning of the year at the Blue Skies meeting. This year, that was on Saturday, February 23rd, where we reviewed existing priorities that were carried over from previous years. New and modified priorities were reviewed and discussed. Some were removed because they were completed and operationalized, and then new ones were added. The second step was in March, about a month and a half later, where City Council reviewed at a study session the draft priority list that was a product of the February 3rd meeting. Public comments were accepted, and we looked at that list with the resource investments in terms of staff time and budgetary considerations. And then moving forward to April of 2024, the priorities were adopted after final consideration. And now that brings us to tonight, where we have a progress report on progress made to date. And so these are for the fiscal year. And so the fiscal year started July 1st. And so this is progress made from July 1st to date. And we have progress made along with some anticipated next steps. And then just a reminder that some of these are for this fiscal year, some of them are for the 2 to 5 year term, and then some of them are for 5 years plus. And so I do have the complete list on the slides that follow. It is an abbreviated list. I'm not going to go through them all, but they are all here. And so the procedure for tonight is to let council pick and choose which ones you may want to discuss. And it is abbreviated in that I don't have the responsible departments. I do have the priority numbers so that it should be easy to navigate. And then I've abbreviated the status, but not the actual priority or work plan language. So I kept the integrity of the substance, but in terms of the status and the next steps, I abbreviated that to save space and to be able to fit the table on the slides. Yeah. So that brings us to slide 1. There's generally about 3 and sometimes 4 on the slides, and I think the last one has 1. And so now it's your turn. And we do have department heads here in case you have questions and need additional information on any of these. And if you don't, you're welcome to say you've received the progress report and you're ready to move on.
So you would like us to read these now and then comment?
The anticipation is that you guys have looked through.
Oh, yeah.
In your packets, and so if there's any that you would like to discuss further, we can. If you want me to go through them, I can. We do have 37 of them.
I think it would be best, we can scroll through real quickly, but if you'd like to take public comment, and then if you guys have any initiative you'd like to talk further about. And just on the list, you have a subset that are year 1 or that we're going to accomplish this year. And then you have, I forget which slide it is, but you have the 2 to 5 years, the initiatives that we have going on there.
So 1 through 9 are year 1,
Okay.
and then the remainder of them.
Yeah, so it might be helpful just to give a very high level so that the community understands what's here too.
Of the full 37? Or would you like year 1?
Let's do year one.
Year one?
Yeah.
Okay. So year one, so slide one has the first three. So we have established policies to decarbonize existing buildings and infrastructure to eliminate methane gas by year 2030. So we have begun that effort already. We started community engagement and outreach. We brought a study session to City Council, and that outreach was paused for a time, and it is scheduled to be resumed in 2025. The second priority is to create a comprehensive, ongoing citywide community outreach and engagement program. And so there were various items included in that, and we have begun and completed some of those items. So we did resume our e-news, which had sort of been paused, and I will say, not completely paused, but there were lapses in between, so it wasn't going out on a regular schedule. And we now are putting it out weekly. We are doing biannual newsletters. Our social media campaigns have been bolstered in numerous ways. We have begun systematically working on our web pages to improve them, to consolidate them, to correct errors, and to remove information that is outdated. We have a draft communications plan that is under review, so it was completed, and we're taking a look at it now, and anticipate to have a final draft of it in early 2025. And we're in the process of recruiting for a communications manager. And we also recently onboarded a communications and public relations engagement coordinator. Number three, create a capital infrastructure plan or process for reinvesting in infrastructure to allow the city to evaluate facilities and assets when upgrades are needed. So proposals for a CIP delivery optimization and organizational review were received in October. We expect an agreement for that in November, and we are doing the interviews for the consultants right now. The expected progress duration or project duration is about 8 months. And then for the next slide, we have the next set of three. So number 4, provide greater support to business development centers or mixed-use development areas to increase economic vitality. And so the status for this one, this is an ongoing effort between community development and the city manager's office and retail real estate consultant is to be embedded in that work. And so that's something that we're exploring as we speak. We did begin to hold quarterly brokers meetings. We had one about a month ago, which was with the city manager's office, and we will be also inviting our community development department to future brokers meetings. And that was a really fruitful meeting where we got a lot of good information about some of the things that came up in our study session earlier tonight. So number 5, expedite efforts to improve the stormwater collection, drainage, and storage system, including dredging the Marina Lagoon. So we have targeted condition assessment for storm drains has been completed. Pump station and other infrastructure assessments are ongoing, along with preliminary stormwater development. Design for the Marina Lagoon spot dredging project is ongoing, and there's a lagoon ad hoc committee discussion coming up, and construction is anticipated for summer fall 2025. Number 6, explore adopting a gardening waste ordinance, which you just heard about, and so I don't think I need to elaborate too much on that.
Check.
So we'll move on to the next slide. Number 7, explore a resolution affirming the city's commitment to integrate new technologies such as artificial intelligence without displacing our workforce. So this priority has not yet been started, and progress this fiscal year is uncertain given staffing constraints to date. And we are proposing to move this one to the 2 to 5 year list, so moving it to the following fiscal year for a start date. Number 8, increase organizational capacity to support the Toyonaka Sister City program within the Parks and Rec Department and the City Clerk's Department. So policy research is underway. City Council presentation expected in Q3, and staff have been coordinating and facilitating monthly check-in meetings with representatives from City of Toyonaka and the Sister City Association to plan for events coming up in 2025. And number 9, and this is the final one for this fiscal year, conduct an annual transportation review of progress on all ongoing plans, including project updates and key metrics such as city mode share, collision, and safety data. So staff is gathering relevant metrics to support this review and presentation. We're exploring options to expedite and centralize data gathering, and a city council report is expected within this fiscal year, so probably coming up in the first half of 2025. And then we do have our 2 to 5 year, which takes up several slides. Would you like me to continue to move through them? I'm happy to, if it's helpful.
I think if we could, I think we're going to do the questions afterwards. I think if we could just do very top lines so that that would be great.
So priority 10, consider adoption of wage theft protections. And so staff is following what's going on with the County Office of Labor Standards to see what they're going to do. And we will be bringing this item back in 2025 for further discussion. Number 11, integrate master plans to increase efficiency and community impact. This is something that we've embedded in all of what we're doing, and you're seeing that through the presentations that we bring forth to you through our ARs and our presentations. Design and implement capital improvements for permanent street closure. I think you guys have all seen the results of that, and we've heard a little bit about that earlier tonight. The furnishings have gone in along with some of the planters and other improvements, and we're almost all of the way there. Some of the wayfinding signage is still left to install, and the bollards have been deferred for further research on our specific plan. Initiate a community budget process for anticipated revenue from Measure C. We did get our first Measure C revenue in 2024, and more is expected in August, and also in August and in September. So that brings us to number 24, remove North Shore view from FEMA flood assessment. And so we did get our revised FEMA flood maps approved in October, which removed over 1,600 properties from the flood zone. So I think we had good progress on that priority. Explore the establishment of a property-based improvement district. This is something that will be initiated sometime in 2025. Explore implementation of customer response management system. And so that is something which we are beginning progress on. We had our kickoff meeting just today. And so good news on that front. We are working diligently toward that priority. Number 17, enhance citywide disaster response and emergency preparedness. We have a city team. We're working really closely with San Mateo Consolidated. We are well underway with updating our emergency preparedness plans. We are taking inventory and stock and placing orders for emergency rations and equipment. We've had a couple of trainings for very large amounts of our staff pool, and we have an RFP out right now for our grant writer and legislative advocacy consultant that we plan to get on board, which should help us to be able to procure more funding for the things that we need. Our sea level rise adaptation plan RFP is about to go live, so lots of work going on when it comes to preparation. Implement the adopted general plan. You guys have heard a lot about that lately, but for our folks who haven't been following along, lots of policy work ongoing, and we will try to channel that energy through our strategic planning efforts and also just through our day-to-day work as we implement through our zoning code update and our specific plan. Implement housing element policies, I would say same, since that is a subset of our general plan. We do have some immediate actions with our ADU ordinance, tenant protections, and other anti-displacement work, and inclusionary housing policy updates. Address structural issues at the Marina Library. I believe you had a consent item earlier that spoke a little bit to that, but 50% of the design assessment is completed. We're doing additional analysis, and we do have some design work that's underway. 21, reconstruct all failed streets in San Mateo by 2026. So we are working on our Smooth Streets Phase 4. We'll resume and complete some of the work by 2025, and Phase 5 is currently scheduled for award and construction in spring, summer 2025. Which brings us to number 22, replace all remaining high voltage circuits to improve safety and reliability of our streetlight system. Construction of Phase 3 is complete, except where we are reliant on PG&E. So our work with PG&E does give us a little bit of a slowdown at times, and so we are working as diligently and rapidly as we can where that is concerned. And design for Phase 4 is underway. Some of the work has been completed also to date. 23, implement a robust year-round downtown activation program as part of our city services. And so we've been doing some work in conjunction with our Downtown Merchants Association and our chamber. So again, speaking to the study session we had earlier this evening, staff has been working collaboratively with our economic development partners to do survey work and to activate our downtown, our PED Mall, but also our downtown in general. And the work that we've been doing, I think, is foundational to this priority, although we have not technically started work on this priority yet. The work that we're doing now will be greatly informative to that. And this work, I think, will start in earnest when we begin work on our specific planning efforts for our downtown. 24, prioritize planning, design, construction, and maintenance of rapid safety improvement projects citywide and ensure there's a reliable city fund for long-term success. Staff is working internally to identify appropriate candidates for rapid safety improvement. By candidates, that means the actual projects, such as traffic signals, push buttons, high visibility, crosswalks, signage, et cetera. And there are some projects that have been identified for consideration on whether they should advance. 25, explore piloting a city grant fund. Progress is expected in spring of 2025 as new staff is onboarded. 26, improve and strengthen democratic systems and decrease polarization. So, campaign finance dashboard was published. An I voted and future voted sticker contest targeted at youth community was conducted to encourage voter participation. Citywide mailers were sent across the city to inform residents about 2024 general elections and to increase awareness on voter registration opportunities. And we are going to be doing a post-election review, which will include metrics for analysis. 27, work with schools, community colleges, businesses, and other organizations to expand youth and senior workforce development and civic leadership opportunities. And so this one entails city manager's office and HR working together to make sure that we are addressing this priority through our volunteer programs and through our staff recruitments. And so job fairs and different types of recruitments for our interns and our workforce and our volunteers. So we do go to schools, but we're looking at how we can also do these things with our nonprofit partners and other organizations and agencies to ensure that we are reaching our youths and our seniors to attract them to our organization. 28, deliver the Clean Water Program. So this $1 billion program is 94% encumbered in professional service and construction contracts, and several collection system and wastewater treatment plant projects are under construction. 29, implement library space master plan. At this point, there has been no progress. This is the 5-year and more, the beginning of the 5-year and more section, and so we haven't had any progress on number 29 just yet. Implement the Central Park Master Plan. So for this one, all bids for Phase 1 playground improvements were rejected at an October 7th council meeting, and so staff is currently exploring potential cost reductions and a presentation on this topic will be made at a future city council meeting, and there may be some modifications that would be required to the scope, and that's something that would need to be discussed further. 31, expedite efforts to improve stormwater collection, drainage, and storage, including dredging in the Marina Lagoon. So the stormwater master plan update is underway and on schedule. Initial data collection, including updated bathymetry surveys for the Marina Lagoon, have been completed. Development of prioritization criteria for capital improvement projects scheduled for Q3 to Q4 of 2025 is planned. 32, implement a green fleet by 2030. So the city is currently has applications pending for non-competitive grant funding through PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, for EV charging infrastructure and a variety of other things. And it's $1.4 million that is basically allotted to us. We just need to submit the projects that are eligible. And so we're doing that right now. We also have grant funding procured for an electronic an e-street sweeper, and we are continuously exploring other funding opportunities for our green fleet, the fleet itself and infrastructure. 33, expedite efforts to provide high-quality effluent from the wastewater treatment plant upgrades to support future production of potable water. Staff are continuing to participate in the Peninsula Pure Water efforts, and we are conducting preliminary evaluations. 34, minimize impacts to residents from train horn noise at city at-grade crossings. And so status update to City Council meeting on July 15th, 2024, which was fairly recent, and I think we probably all recall that we heard a lot about that. Staff was directed to explore additional alternatives and present findings, which we expect to be doing Q1 of 2025. And staff is currently reviewing those alternatives. The completion of the project as a result of exploring those additional alternatives will likely be pushed out a little bit. And so that brings us to 35, study resource feasibility for the downtown grade separations and long-term train corridor improvements. Staff is exploring funding opportunities for the grade separation feasibility study. We did receive preliminary feedback that the safety concerns and collision data for the downtown crossings may not be significant enough for the city to be competitive comparatively nationwide to receive some of the funding that we would like. Number 36, improve traffic flow on 19th Avenue and Fashion Island Boulevard from Grant to Mariners Island Boulevard. And so we have combined two projects to make ourselves more competitive for funding. And I think we might have an update on that. I think we actually may have received preliminary word that we may be receiving some funding for that. And I'm not sure. I've been away for the last couple of weeks, and I have a lot of emails in my inbox, but I thought I saw something saying we may be getting some money for that. And then that brings us to our last one, complete all high and medium priority projects in the 2020 Bicycle Master Plan and Pedestrian Master Plan with a goal of prioritizing quick build projects where feasible. So staff is working on updated programming for high and medium priority projects from the 2020 Bike Plan. Findings from the May 2024 Local Roadway Safety Plan will be integrated to assist in the prioritization of planning the remaining projects, and progress continues toward completion of citywide complete streets and North Central complete streets. Which brings us to our home slide, which is if you guys have any feedback on any of those after you hear from the public.
That's right. Well, thank you very much. Before public comment? Yeah, okay, let's do the public comment first. But number one, I think it was important to go through that, even though it was a long list, so that anyone from the public listening would understand all the things that are going on with city staff, which is important. So do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Mayor, I have not received any requests to speak. This is for item number 8, City Council Priority List Progress Report. If there's anyone who wishes to speak on this item, please provide me with the yellow request to speak slip, or if you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand now. Madam Mayor, there is no request to speak on this item. Do you want to speak? Okay, we have one request to speak on this item.
Come on up and fill out a sheet.
That's
We should
3
have one
minutes per speaker.
pre-printed for you, Trina.
You can go right ahead.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Trina Pierce. I live in North Central. Looking at what they just went over, it talked about North Shoreview being out of the flood zone. What about North Central? Was there any, because I didn't hear anything about North Central, and I don't think we're combined with North Shoreview, correct? Or we are? Yes. We are. Okay, so that's all part of it. Okay. Okay. Because I know in some things it says North Central and some things that had North Shoreview too. So we're included in with North Shoreview. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's why we have public comment.
Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. And I'll close public comment and bring it back to the council for questions and comments. Councilmember Lee, do you want to start this time?
Can I just make one comment?
Oh, okay.
And I'll leave it open to everyone else. On the bike plan, there's $250,000 sitting at CCAG. We didn't have a quorum last time. If we get one more person there, it'll be coming our way to do the bike master plan.
Okay, that was good information. Thank you. All right. Would you like to start us off?
Sure. Well, I'm actually really glad that we went through the exercise of reading all of the items, and I think that it, for those folks who show up for the one campaign that they just got going on, some of these items have been driven for years, and some of them decades, and there's a lot of work that has went into this list of 37, which used to be 43 or 58, and soon will be a little bit shorter. Our city manager says 3. So many of these items I've been driving for 5 years that I've been on council, and 10 years if you count the time before I was on council, and one of the things that I just wanted to get a little bit more specificity that I care a lot about, and I'm really proud that we were the first city in the county to launch a campaign finance dashboard. We're still just among a handful of local jurisdictions that have campaign finance dashboards. This is, from my perspective, one of the most important public education, civic education tools that we as a city can provide to voters and to the community to inform the public about their candidates and about the measures that they're voting on at a local level. And I wanted to get some input from our city clerk, who's been driving this, about what feature sets are we committing to in the next year.
Certainly. So through the mayor, our campaign finance dashboard was launched for our 2022 city council election. It was, as Councilmember Lee mentioned, it was very much first of its kind, certainly for the county of San Mateo, and provides residents with easy to hand one-stop shop for campaign finance. Prior to that, residents had to be intimately familiar with the various different forms, Form 460s, Form 497s. A lot of that isn't immediately accessible to the public. We bring all of that data together and we compile it into an easy to access dashboard, which provides residents with information about campaign activity, both expenditures and contributions received. We provide voters with information about location of contributions, whether they're within the city of San Mateo, whether they're in the county of San Mateo, whether they're in the state or outside of the state of California. There's been a couple of things that we've been looking at for the dashboard and ways that we can optimize it even further. One of those features is real-time updates through an API that would allow us to do more frequent publications of the dashboard. Currently, what we're looking at is weekly updates of the dashboard, and that is a limitation currently within the dashboard. We do communicate when updates will be made on the dashboard and what data is currently being published, but having more real-time data will be helpful. Another feature that we want to roll out for future elections is independent expenditures. A lot of that information comes to us indirectly through the state, through those filers don't file directly with our office, so that is something that we would need to figure out in terms of how quickly we get access to that data and how routinely we will be able to include that within the dashboard.
I'm thrilled to hear that we're going to tackle the IEs. And also, are we looking at covering the ballots in addition to the candidates?
Yes, so that is something that we're hoping to bring back through the post-election review in February of next year, reporting not just candidate data, but also ballot measure campaign data.
Great. And I think, from my perspective, a really small tweak that I think would be easy to make and immediate would be to connect on the dashboard the candidates that have opted into the voluntary expenditure limit program. I think that should be front and center. If people are going to a web page about campaign finances, there should be a highlight for those candidates that are actually adhering to the policy, which caps spending at $50,000 plus CPI. I think we're doing. So I would love to see those things come together in one place because it's like with like, right? And in terms of like the IE call outs, like will we actually be listing the source documents or compiling source donor lists that you can like hover over the IEs, or like, do you have a sense of what the public facing information will be?
So what we can do with independent expenditures is we can link to the NetFile portal where those ultimately get published. So if voters can see broad picture how much independent expenditures were received for a given campaign. If they want more information, they can drill down even further, and we can include links to the NetFile portal, which will bring them directly to who filed, what was received, when it was received, how much was spent. So it'll give users a direct link to the source of the filing.
Great. And just because I think it's worth mentioning, the state database on the Secretary of State, they host a publicly accessible, like searchable database of all donors. And they're actually going to be doing a complete overhaul of their system that will be rolled out in November 2026. And one of their vendors is MapLight, which is a local Bay Area-based nonprofit nonpartisan nonprofit that I think could be a really great resource for us as we continue to develop our system. I really honestly think that this should be spearheaded across the county, and if there's a way to consolidate our efforts and make it more of a pilot that can be replicated across the entire county, that would be tremendous. And so I want us to think about how to leverage what we're doing at a bigger scale as we build out the model. So that's campaign finance dashboard. Let's move on to number 13, Measure CC, which is not in our year one plan. So I I sweat. I sweat and bled for Measure CC, and that measure was passed by 70% of our voters, and a majority of council members, unanimously, supported Measure CC, which was a really once-in-a-lifetime tax on real property transfers over $10 million and above. This is one of the most important equity reforms for tax policy that effectively taxed the 1%. If you have a $10 million property in your pocket, you can afford a 1% tax increase in 43 years. This is something that we had every single stakeholder group at the table joining forces to get this passed. And for years, we haven't seen the revenue, or for 18 months or something? 18 months, not even 2 years. We haven't seen the revenue, and now we're starting to see the gains. Even in a slow year with really terrible interest rates, we're looking at offsetting our deficit potentially by over $1 million. I can't leave this dais without reminding folks that when I was working for this initiative, I was promising a participatory budgeting process. We had our sustainability folks, we had our seniors, we had our nonprofits, we had everyone coming to the table and saying, we're gonna coalesce around this initiative. And the hope was that we would give power to the community to actually decide how these resources were going to be allocated. I don't want us to sit on this decision. I don't want us to push this out. I think that we owe it to the community to actually prioritize this, because the revenue is going to come in. And if we're not paying attention, it will go into the inertia of our budgeting process, which does not have the level of accountability that we promised to the community who supported this. So my perspective is that I think that we should start the framework of the participatory budgeting process now, because that's the promise we made to the community who came together, and those are the promises that we want to deliver on, so that they'll support the next revenue measure in 2026. So if we go back to the voters in 2026 and say, hey, time to dig deep in your pockets, they're going to turn around and say to us, hey, I supported Measure CC. I never got asked the question about what I wanted to see that money go to. I never got asked the question, do I want to fund bike lanes, or do I want more money to fund a citywide grant program, or do I want to hire MapLight to enhance our campaign finance dashboard? None of those decision points will have the light of day if we don't create a framework and move this forward. And so I feel very strongly that this is not something that should be pushed further and further out. The money is in the door. So I'm curious to hear from my council members if you're open to expediting the timeline.
So I'm happy to jump in. Just overall, and we have our finance director who's also online this evening, but on this item, we've collected about, I believe we're looking at 1.6 million. There'll be more than that. We're also faced with a $10.6 million budget shortfall, and we're going to keep seeing basically the budget deficits year after year after year. We also see big needs with our capital improvement program and our infrastructure program, and so we're looking at dedicating some of this funding to our CIP program. But to your point of saying community-based budgeting, there could be a subset of money that we're looking at for this upcoming budget process to have that discussion. But it'd be a subset, not saying the whole, the whole amount of everything that comes in there, Councilmember Lee, but a subset that we can have a community-based budgeting process with.
I think a subset is what we were promising, not the whole shebang. I understand that we are facing a deficit. I've been saying that every single meeting. Yeah, and I also know that our long-term budgeting process is, means that we've committed to dipping into our rainy day reserves with the intention of building back up. So I just, I think the question is, how do we define the subset? How do we start developing the framework, and what is the potential timeline and capacity to do so?
So the timeline and capacity to do so, as I mentioned, is the budgeting process this coming year. So that would be starting next year. It's usually in February, and it'll run its course all the way through June. I would say, just off of what I'm seeing right now, maybe $500,000 out of your $1.5 million, but that's going to be a council policy question that I'll bring up as part of the mid-year budget update in February to have that policy discussion. But I would not put all of that money into the community-based budgeting process right now with all our unfunded capital needs and basically our huge budget deficit that we have.
Neither would I.
A subset.
I like the $500,000 number. Just for the record, because I won't be here when you guys decide. But I appreciate having some clarity around the timeline and next steps because that is very important, and we cannot lose sight of the promises that we made because the next ballot measure is coming in 2026, and we don't want to be hat in hand with with undelivered promises. So. Those were my comments, and other than that, I'm just really, I want to take a moment and just share my deep appreciation for staff. It takes so much work and commitment to deliver all of these priorities, and especially to Alex, coming in year one and inheriting over 50 items, and then and the discipline it took, and the courage it takes to pose to the council hard choices and to set limits. So I appreciate you and your leadership. I hope that as we continue moving forward, that we can be much more judicious and focused about time and priorities, so that so Alex can sustain in his position and have some work-life balance.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lorraine, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Assistant Manager Horsberger, for your presentation. And I concur with Councilmember Lee and the Mayor on the idea to talk through it a bit longer so that everybody understands all that the city is doing. And I think it helped me come up with another question or two in addition to what I had. So I appreciated that. Also, before I forget, just want to mention that I basically support everything Councilwoman Lee said in her comments with regard to appreciation for the campaign finance dashboard and the work that's being done, and especially with regard to ensuring that we keep our promises with Measure CC. And I appreciate the response from the city manager and staff. So looking forward to next steps on that. I had just a couple of minor clarifying questions on priority number 5 with regard to lagoon work and stormwater work. I saw there was a note about construction being initiated, and I just want to clarify that is related to spot dredging. So when we talk about construction in 2025, it's spot dredging. Thank you.
We'll have our Public Works Director come up and answer that question.
Can you please vocalize your nod, Public Works Director?
Oh, did he nod?
Yeah, we didn't hear it yet.
Good evening, Public Works Director Matt Fabry. Yes, that is for the spot dredging work that would be initiated in hopefully in next summer.
Excellent, thank you. I might have another question that might be Public Works related. So, in fact, I do. This is another super minor question, but just for clarification. Just confirming that there's an item about smooth streets, and are we saying that phase 5, which is the final phase, so saying that smooth streets right now we're hoping to have complete in 2025 and in summer 25, or is that more about like design and initiating phase 5?
Yeah, I think we're looking at probably trying to finish all of Smooth Streets by the end of calendar year 2026 at this point. We've had some delays given some of the challenges we've faced on some of the streets where we've had some really poor soil conditions, and that's delayed some of the projects. We've had to shift some of the budget from future years' budgets to cover some of the costs that we've had on some of these more difficult streets. So at this point, it's pushed things out to, I think, end of year calendar 2026 that we think we'd be done with the whole Smooth Streets program.
I see. So in next year, with regard to phase 5, I guess we're finishing design and beginning the phase, but not expecting to be finished in 26.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see. And then I think, yes, that's, then I just have kind of maybe a broader question. While I appreciate that progress has been made to date, and I appreciate that we have so many priorities and there's so much to be doing, and even to step back and seeing that one of the priorities might be implement the general plan or something to that effect. Of course, that's hundreds of things actually. I will just note that a number of priorities, and I know it's not personal, but a number of them happen to be ones that I've brought forth, were delayed in one way or another based on staffing, bandwidth, and so on. I did just, I know that another, de facto priority of the city and the city manager's office is to fill key vacancies. We have our new HR director here tonight. And so this is a work in progress. I just wonder if I could ask perhaps the city manager or assistant or the appropriate person to speak a little to the challenges we've faced over this last year with regard to departures, key departures, and how maybe like we are looking at staffing going forward, maybe with an eye toward potentially having backup support in the event that we do have departures, or how we're looking at this, staffing going forward with an eye toward that.
All right, Councilmember Lorraine, I'll go ahead and I'll answer that question for you. So if you really look at, just even as part of the budget process this year, if you look at the city manager's priorities or my priorities for this organization, first and foremost is to attract and retain a strong workforce. And our employees are our greatest assets. And so when you really look at just the 37 items right here, I know you said the city's doing a lot. This is nothing. This is just scratching the surface. This is the city council's priorities. But when you look at just operating this city, between all our 11 departments, there's a lot going on here. In addition to this is just, the top part above the waterline of the iceberg. There's so much happening, and staff works very hard day in and day out. We are an organization that has gone through significant transition from the top tiers of the organization to the mid-level, all the way down to the lower tiers of the organization, so at all levels. Luckily, there's been we've hired over 118 full-time employees over this past year. We've had a recruitment blitz that has taken place. A lot of those positions, though, it's been great succession planning and opportunity for lower level staff to grow and professionally grow within this organization, who have been put into the next level of positions, whether they've gone from the lower mid-tier up to the middle to top tier. You've really seen that. And so now, of course, it's a domino effect where we got to start filling in those positions. at the lower levels of the organization. And so with that, it's a competitive environment too. People, it's really expensive to live here, as you know, through negotiations overall. People have, needs and might want to have different lifestyles or have a different size house or what they view as their opportunities. And so people do leave, whether it's leaving the region or looking at opportunities in other agencies to continue their professional growth at the same time. But we're looking to attract and retain top talent staff here. It's going to take a number of years to really work towards I'm always, what I talk to you guys about is I want this to be a destination and be the leader. We are the top, we are the largest city in the county. I always like to say our chief of police is doing a great job because, Ed, we have every single police officer position filled, right? That's right. That's awesome to be able to say that. Other jurisdictions don't have that. And so that's great to see what we're doing over there, but we want to do that for the rest of this organization too at the same time. And so, we have a new human resources director. We're committed to really work towards attracting and retaining our staff. And so looking forward to do that. So don't want to take up any more time, but that is one of our top priorities here as an organization.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Hedges.
I wish everybody in the city was watching this tonight to see the immense amount of work that you and everybody in the city does and how well you do it. I am very happy. Number 5, I talked to, will remain nameless, a city council person right after the flooding and about all the problems we had, the flood instructor, and this person said, I just think we kicked the can down the road. And with Matt and with our current city manager and the city council, the can has come to the end of the road, and we're doing something about it. I'm so pleased with it. All we have to do is find all the money and follow through, and we'll get there. So I'm not going to comment any more on that. By the way, I support much of what Amarantz Lee said too, Councilwoman Lee, especially on CC. So let me get to CC. Many of us worked very hard on that, and I just have a couple of questions, actually. I know that probably the first money that's coming in is from the 1500 Fashion Island sale.
So I know we just went through documentation. Karen, can you jump in here? She's on virtually right now, and she could probably speak through which cells. I believe it was the Best Western over there off of Bayshore was one of the first big ones. Is that correct, Karen, for Measure CC?
Yes. That one is one of it, but we also have some apartment complex would have transfer titles, so we receive Measure CC revenue over there as well. Treasure Island is the office park that the county purchased. Right. That piece of the Measure CC, I haven't seen the revenue come in yet. I have reached out to Persona to double check the Measure CC ordinance to see if the county is exempt from the transfer tax because they are a government entity. Yeah. So that's something I'm going to follow up on.
Earlier, our feeling was they weren't exempt. Hopefully they're not. We'll find out. Yeah, and do you know anything about the Bridgepoint Center that was in escrow? That's going to be a big sale.
I haven't seen the revenue come in. Usually there's a delay when the county collect the transfer tax. They will accumulate the tax and provide the payment about 15 days after the month end.
So they get the overnight
float. So I'll keep an eye on it. Mm-hmm.
They get the overnight float on the overnight money that they have invested.
So the two that are kind of outstanding, the bigger ones, is the bridge. What we know of is the Bridgepoint Shopping Center exchanged hands and was sold. So there's opportunity there. It should be well over $10 million. And then the other one is the Hillsdale Garden Apartments is the other big one that just recently transferred ownership as well. And so we're probably in December, because I've been checking with our finance director to follow up with our county colleagues to make sure that we're tracking those funds. But those should be a couple bigger real estate transactions that should contribute further to this fund.
My position on CC, and agreeing with Councilwoman Lee, is that it really needs to be programmed in with our infrastructure to make sure that all parts of the city are starting to get fixed as they should be. Number 7. I was going to say something on that. Yeah, the artificial intelligence part, what we talked about in Blue Sky is that we retrain people that are displaced. And I would like to see that explained a little better in here for other jobs in the city. And at this point, the number of openings we have probably aren't going to heal itself overnight, that we should be able to save anybody's job in the near future that loses a job because of AI. This is going to be a major issue. I mean, even Waymo and Uber have cut a deal, and they're going to be putting driverless taxis in 3 of the cities that Uber operates in. So they're going to be displacing independent contractors, not just employees. I had one other. On the wage theft issue, one of the things we talked about on that is making sure that we have staff that's up to par on that they can direct people, not just having people search on a website trying to find something, but when people come and ask questions, direct them exactly where to go with the county to make sure this is taken care of, because it's a major issue. And wage theft generally hits the poorest of employees. We had one issue in this county where a bakery who employed, and it wasn't in this city, who employed primarily immigrants, were actually keeping their tips that were on credit cards. So this is something that actually involves economic development with the city, because if people don't have money to spend, the more money they have to spend, the more economic development we have. So that's, by the way, you've done a great job on this. So that's the end of my comments. I'm very satisfied with it generally.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
First off, thank you to all city staff, because you guys have done a tremendous job of moving so many initiatives forward. So it really hats off to all of the city staff who are here and watching. It's also great going second to last, because I started off with like 8 and now I'm down to, I think, 3.5. So I did hear you ask about moving the AI from 1 year to the 2 to 5 year bucket. I would be okay with that, but obviously it's not my initiative, so I would open it to my fellow council members to chime in. Second thing was, I know that the FEMA initiative number 14 was to get Shoreview out of the FEMA flood zone. I would like to see if we could explore at least revisiting what other parts of the city are in the FEMA flood map, and not necessarily to get them out at this time, but to make sure that as we're moving forward with all our flood initiatives, using, and one example, like the culvert that goes under 101 from Laurel Creek is probably the main reason why the village is still in the flood zone. And I'd like to make sure that we're not losing track of that, because we're moving in all these other different initiatives to try to, for example, dredge. We may be able to find funding as we go to federal and state resources. We might be able to find funding to expand the culvert under 101. So I don't know if that's something I have to wait until January to put on the Blue Sky again, but I would be curious to see if we could keep an eye on the ball as to what's still going to be in the FEMA flood map, and then, what are the root causes of that?
So, Councilmember Newsom, I think that'd probably be a new initiative, but I'll look to turn to Matt. Do you want to just speak to it? Because I believe that's way different than what we were doing on North Shoreview and North Central. And the $20 million bond, I think, that we issued to do that work.
Yeah, so we do still have certain small pockets of areas in the city that are still within flood zones, and we don't have any projects that are currently planned that would get those folks out of the flood zone. They are high dollar projects, as you mentioned, Councilmember Newsom, to get some of those folks out of the flood zone. So, but that's definitely something that we can be looking at carefully as we're updating the storm drain master plan and coming up with our prioritized list of improvements that are needed. Is how can those projects potentially benefit folks that are in a flood zone. So that will be part of what we'll look at as part of that process.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt.
Councilmember Hedges had something.
And Councilmember Hedges has something to chime in.
Yeah, I've worked on both the flood initiatives, and the San Mateo Villages issue is the culvert. But there's one other issue. There's a bridge that's too low. It needs to be raised because they feel that it would pick up scraps coming down and wood and other things and back up and cause flooding, which is obviously an example of how flooding happens.
Thank you. Okay, getting on to my last couple. I do see that we have the green fleet with the goal of 5 years from now having, basically greened up our fleet. I'm curious as to whether we think that that's still obtainable in the next 5 years. And then I guess my other point would be, even though that we have some of these goals that are, 2 to 5 years and 5 years plus, that doesn't mean that we don't need to be maybe moving the football continually. For example, we've got very little infrastructure in place currently to green our fleet if we were to get, a fully electric fleet. We're at, between natural gas and electric, less than 7% of our current fleet. So I think my question would be, do we need to relook at if that 5 years is attainable? And then the second part being, how do we make sure that even though it's a further out goal, that we're still making traction on it? Which
I was going to have our public works director come up, unless you got it, Christina.
Sorry, Matt.
But I think you make a really good point of just getting the charging infrastructure. Like, I'll just be honest with you. I don't think that we would have the infrastructure. Just for an example, the police station, to change all our police department vehicles it'd be really tough to do that in the next 5 years. I guess I'm trying, Ed, realistically, yeah, okay, he agrees with me. I'm just making sure the chief agrees with me on that.
And I think our other challenge is whether or not there's even going to be vehicles that are an option for some of our needs. And so we have some of the police, their patrol vehicles. There's no electric options that really work for those at this point, but maybe within a few years there may be. I think they're moving in that direction. We also have challenges with a lot of the heavier duty public works vehicles that we have. We do have the grant that we got for the electric sweeper, and we have an item, I think, coming to the council next meeting that would be to appropriate the funds to buy an electric sweeper. So we're moving on that, but it's twice as much money as what a diesel sweeper was. But we can't get a diesel sweeper anymore, so that was our only option, is to go electric. So, but I think also recognizing that I think in our definition of green fleet, it does include things like renewable diesel, that we have some of the vehicles that are renewable diesel. So I think we have options, but I think it's definitely getting the infrastructure in place to be able to charge our electric fleet as we move in that direction, which includes at the police station, includes at the courtyard. We're working on charging infrastructure here at City Hall that would allow us to charge vehicles here. But then whether or not there's going to be vehicles available, I think, is a question. So whether or not we can do it by 2030, I think is a good question. My bet would be that it's probably going to be pushed beyond 2030 realistically. So.
Thank you.
I would just also add that, I want to say that that's derived from our climate action plan, and we do revisit our climate action plan usually at a rough 5-year interval, and so that might be an opportunity to look at it when we have some data and metrics that are available to go with it. But I do agree with what's been said here. But having that date on there, I also think helps keep us on track for procuring the funding that we need to keep working diligently toward the goal, and then reevaluating it from time to time and pushing it forward when we need to. But
Understood. Thank you. Thank you all for your clarifications. The last thing would be, I'm going to lump them together. 34 and 35 on our 5+ year plan are train horn noise and grade separations. And I think with the increase or the movement to electric trains and the 20% increase in the number of trains, and the fact that Caltrain currently doesn't have their decibel level correct, and it keeps resetting every time they have an upgrade on their software on the trains. I don't know that, and actually I do know that we're not going to be able to wait 5 years to address the train horn problem. It's going to be something, and I'm happy to talk about it with our Blue Sky initiatives, but I can definitely say with certainty that, 65 of my residents or neighbors are already complaining, and I know that that's only going to go up. As I talk to some of the residents that are affected, what I realize is that some of the people from, for example, our low-income apartment units, they're just not complaining. It's not that they're not impacted by it, but it's that they're not coming forward. But as we talk to the residents who are saying this, I think there's more there. And so, I hope that we can maybe break that off and address it sooner. And then, obviously, again, just the point being with grade separation, it's going to take us decades to get grade separation in place. So I want to make sure that we continue making traction. Sorry for the pun. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much again for your presentation.
Okay, I will not be quite as good a jokester, but thank you to all. Just adding on, just more comments. Number 2, the city community outreach and engagement program. I think it's been just such a great kickoff, and I would ask, how can we, the city council news that comes out, how do we make that more available to more people? Because I think there's a lot of good information there that could be on a more timely basis than the twice a year kind of information. How do we get it out there? Maybe there's a way of using the website. I don't know. Number 4, the support for business development centers or mixed-use development areas. I think this is another great area to get the chamber more involved in. I can see the chamber being much more a convener of the developers or different communities or businesses, so that it's not everyone on your shoulders to do. So I would encourage making them much more actively involved. Then let's see, number 12, the permanent street closure. Thank you, Councilmember Hedges, for your comments earlier about how it's gone so well, and so therefore, your feeling about permanent street closure has evolved, and I just think it's been one of the best things that's happened to our city. So the more we can do, the better, and that's all departments in the city working on that. In terms of number 14 and removing North Shoreview from the FEMA flood assessment. I know that there's been some sporadic communication and some residents have gotten the information, but I think a very loud, coordinated, happy, joyful, and maybe not joyful, but positive outreach would be very important to let everyone know, because this is a multi-year effort that so many people and so much money has been involved in. So once again, let's tell people when something good is happening and tell it in a loud voice. I'm personally very excited about the fact that you had your kickoff today about the system. I said to Christina earlier tonight, my God, it looked like everybody and their brother was in the meeting you had today. I didn't know what the meeting was for. And this is a citywide effort, so of course everyone's involved, so good luck. I am 100% behind that. And let's see, number 20, the structural issues at Marina Library. James, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen, but we all have to get behind and help, because there still is a funding gap to getting it closed. So, really working with corporate sponsorships. I know the foundation's working on it. We all have to, but we've got to keep this a high priority, because it's too important for our community. And communications, again, in terms of the Smooth Street program, I just think there's a huge communication opportunity, whether it's in the city news or whatever, that this is just huge what's happened over the years with, fixing the streets and overcoming things. And may we never get in a position where we have to do this again. So that's part of it. But really telling people that this is, because it's just a huge effort. And people are all interested in that. And I know that every area of the city wants to be equally involved in the Smooth Streets program, and we want every area of the city to be equally involved. Number 23, with the downtown activation, I'm just so impressed with the coordination, the collaboration that's gone on between the city, DSMA, the chamber, B Street Boosters, individuals. I think this is just only at the very beginning, so keep revving it up. I think number 24, in terms of the rapid, basically the quick improvements, I think the more we can do that, the better. There's so much concern in our community about traffic and speeding and dangers and all this. So any kind of quick builds that we can get out there just to show to the community that we are committed to doing this, the better, given the fact that some of the longer projects will take a long, long time. You've spoken about the train noise. I agree with everyone. And that's it. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for all the efforts past, present, and future. And thank you to Council for helping support all these great efforts by staff. So thank you, Assistant City Manager. Do you have what you need? Okay, and thank you for going through the whole list. I do appreciate it. All right, so I think we're moving on to reports and announcements. So who has a report or announcement that? Councilmember Hedges.
Well, I've already mentioned that there's $500,000 sitting in CCAG for San Mateo. Hopefully, we'll bring that home at the next meeting. One of the things I'd like to talk about, I was so heartwarming to have the no sellout people here tonight. And they, my vision was, I don't know how absolutely dangerous this is, but I do know when people are fearful. And anything we can do to calm down the fears is what I wanted to do. And I will tell you right now that we have some, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but we have an esteemed attorney here that I think can probably work around this. I think that some things we can do without doing a vote of the council, but just a nod of our heads, that we have a moratorium on the use of the city infrastructure by cell tower providers, or that we just do a moratorium on any future development of them until we can get a handle on all the damage that Crown Castle has done to the city infrastructure. So I would like to see the city tonight come up with a way that we can halt progress on these cell towers until we get our ordinance in place.
So I'll just respond briefly. So the proposed ordinance and policy is coming to the City Council on November 18th. So I think that's an opportunity to have discussion about what the rules that are going to go into place if the council approves the ordinance and the policy. And we can also have a discussion about the timing of those rules, which I'm already looking into.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an interim basis in case they try to jam a number of these, and we already know they've been jamming them. So there should be something we can do in a short interim.
Well, this kind of thing happens frequently, say during the building code adoption cycle. There's oftentimes a rush of applications right before the new building code goes into place. So, a moratorium is something quite different than that. I mean, moratorium comes up in different circumstances when the city, say, for example, needs to study a new type of use, needs to develop rules to deal with that kind of use. This is not that situation. And I see that our Public Works Director is at the podium too. I don't know if you wanted to chime in further.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Crown Castle currently is under a stop work notice from Public Works, and it's based on a lot of the challenges we had when they were doing construction. They damaged a lot of utilities, as you referenced. So they have a phased plan that they have to work through before they can even start resubmitting applications. And so there's a lot of work still that has to happen in terms of doing CCTV work to look at all the utilities that they crossed when they did their fiber boring work. And we've found, I think staff told me today that we have 17 or 18 utilities that have been identified as being damaged through that CCTV work, and they still have, I think they've done about 60% of the analysis at this point. So there's still another 30-something% of the distance that has to be evaluated. And so I don't anticipate that they're going to be at a position under our stop work notice and the phased approach that they would even be able to submit any new applications until after the potential new ordinance would go into effect. So I think the concerns about Crown Castle suddenly putting in a whole package of applications based on at least the way we have things set up right now with the process that they have to go through, where they have to do this analysis, fix things that have been damaged, restore any of the sites that have already been implemented before they can even get to the point of submitting a new application, is going to probably take us well past the point when the new ordinance would go into effect.
That's good news, Matt. Thank you.
Sure.
Matt, have you ever, and I'm asking you only for an opinion, not at the rule of law, have you ever dealt with a contractor that's done this kind of damage?
I can't speak, with any significance on this other than, there's been another company that's been going from, our southern border into our northern border, boring fiber, and we haven't had nearly the issues in terms of the number of utilities that have been damaged. So it definitely seemed like there were challenges with the contractor that they were utilizing on that piece of it. But that's the only piece that I can really say that we had real problems was with the fiber boring in terms of all the damage that was done in terms of utilities that they
How about to any of the poles? Are there any damage there?
I don't think we've seen any significant issues with work on the poles.
Okay.
If I may also caution the council that this item isn't on the council agenda, so I think it's appropriate to wrap up the discussion, and then it's coming to the city council at the very next meeting.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Well, yes. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I'm done.
Councilmember Lloyd? No? Councilmember Lee?
Today we heard from Less Red Tape that they have exceeded their threshold, and now there's over a majority of impacted properties and homeowners who have submitted their opposition to the historic designation. And there was a request from this group that the council take action in the form of a resolution requesting that San Mateo Heritage Alliance withdraw their application. I strongly support this idea. I think that the evidence has shown that there is not sufficient support to move this forward. And San Mateo Heritage Alliance should hear from our city leadership about their position. Theirs is not in any way an enforceable act. This is a statement about our values and our support for the integrity and autonomy and decision-making of property owners. So I'm interested to hear from council if there is support to draft a resolution requesting that San Mateo Heritage Alliance withdraw their application for the Baywood Historic District to OHP.
City Attorney, did you want to say something?
Just briefly, if the council wants to agendize something in the future, I mean, it can, but the council also had a discussion previously about the process of going through developing a historic ordinance, and the council gave direction to staff to take action, develop a local process. So that's, and perhaps the city manager, assistant city manager can speak to that in more detail, but staff is moving forward with that direction from the council. So again, the council could agendize something, but at some point, the council needs to, once it provides direction, then staff can allowing staff an opportunity to then implement that direction is the more conventional approach, but it's really up to the council to decide what to do.
I don't think that in what is being proposed is inhibiting or impairing the city staff to go through the process that has been that has been determined, which includes a survey of insurance providers, community input, hiring of a consultant, and consideration of adoption of an ordinance. That is a separate decision point than what I'm asking of the council tonight, which is a statement on the San Mateo Heritage Alliance's application to the state, which is adjacent to our policy, but not in any way the same thing. They have not succeeded in getting a majority of property owners to support this. In fact, it will be, there's a majority in opposition. And even if the city council, if OHP goes forward, it cannot make a historic designation. It could deem these properties eligible individually for historic designation, which essentially is meaningless, except for the fact that it would then impose CEQA requirements, which are incredibly onerous and expensive.
Councilmember Lee, I'm just thinking through, and I think it was almost a year ago, or maybe a little less than a year ago, where you asked the council for the same kind of request to, submit some type of statement against the Heritage Alliance application to OHP. And at that time, you did not get a majority of the council to move in that direction. And so I know we've gone through months and months and months of this. And so like the city attorney said, one area will be coming back in I think it's the second meeting, Zach, in January, where we'll talk about just whether or not to embark on the historical resources program, and maybe under that you can have a additional discussion on this item there.
The net new, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because now we have the new facts that a majority of property owners oppose this effort. Whereas when I was raising this before, there was no way to quantify the level of support or opposition. And so given that new information and the new facts at hand, I think it's warranted to address this council and ask for your leadership on this issue. And so I'm interested to hear from my fellow council members. Would you support issuing a statement in the form of resolution requesting San Mateo Heritage Alliance withdraw their application? Is there support to agendize
City Attorney,
this?
you had a comment you wanted to make?
I wish to hear from my council members before further discussion. And this is a simple yes or no. Are you interested in agendizing this?
I would like to hear from the city attorney so that it could be a fully informed discussion.
So I'll be brief. Keep in mind that as part of this process that's going on at the state level, there is a point in that process where really the entity applying will ask the city will be asked at some point whether it wishes to provide input. So that could be a point where the council could agendize that for discussion. That would be in the future, but I think the city manager sort of makes a valid point that when something comes up, I get that there's new facts, but the council, once it gives direction to staff generally will then move on that. Staff has to move on that direction, as opposed to revisiting the same issue again. So it's up to the council.
I take issue with this with this situation. Number one, the information that you've provided about the additional opportunity for the city to weigh in is well known and well stated. We know that through the application process, the city will have an opportunity to weigh in, right? If San Mateo Heritage Alliance withdraws their application, that does not inhibit the city from pursuing a local ordinance. These are two separate decision points. And so the attempt right now to conflate these two issues when they are in fact entirely different is, it seems to me to be obstructing the council from actually weighing in and deciding for themselves, is this something that the city council would like to take a position on. I would like to know from my fellow council members, given these new facts, would you support drafting a resolution requesting that San Mateo Heritage Alliance withdraw their application?
I'll be happy to respond.
Please do.
So in a meeting here, I asked the Heritage Alliance to remove their application. And I talked to the two prime movers on this and personally asked them. And they told me they wouldn't because they have a lot of money invested in this. I think they said around $40,000. I can't remember exactly. So I think it's going to do no good and it's a waste of time. So I'm not interested in doing it tonight. So, I mean, I've been down that road.
I am also not interested. Thank you.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested at this time, but I would like to make sure that we get the numbers so that when it comes back from the state, we're prepared to be able to address it.
I have direction. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and while I'm still here, I'd say if we do the ordinance and go through for historical, that there is a part in this ordinance where a majority of the people can opt out because that's the way it should be.
I agree.
Thank you. So, do you have any reports and announcements?
Yeah. Well,
You must. You.
just a reminder to everybody to get out and vote. I've been walking precincts for some things that I can't talk about, but it's really important to get out and vote and encourage your kids, especially between 18 and 21, to get their votes in. That's one thing. And then the other thing, which I don't need to hear much about, but just I have heard from residents again about train noise. I think probably did a software upgrade over the weekend, and so every time the software upgrades itself, we're going back. I know that they owe us a response, Alex, but
I haven't received it yet, and I'll be following up tomorrow on it.
Thank you. That's all I ask. Thanks so much.
And the only thing I would add is I would encourage everyone, if you don't know where to go, how to get, what to do with your ballot, there is the most wonderful vote center here at City Hall that is open tomorrow morning starting at 7, and also at the library, the main branch. And there are people here who can answer your questions if you have any concerns. I was so impressed visiting the vote center today. And I would also like to give a great big shout out to the city clerk's office for all the work you have been doing to get ready for this election, because this is really important. And also for an incredible boards and commissions dinner last week, which was so much fun, and I think really brought the boards and commissions together. And I vote for another, mystery or kidnapping or whatever it is next year. You can make it even better. So thank you. So if we are done, then I will adjourn us. Thank you, everyone, very much. Have a safe evening, and make sure your ballots are turned in by tomorrow. Thank you.